Good morning, boys and girls. We are so glad that you are back with us this Monday morning, and we hope you had a great Thanksgiving. So, in reading, we were reading fairy tales, talking about the characters, the setting, the beginning, middle, end, and the problem. So, today we're going to start something new called comparing and contrasting. Let's see what that means.
Compare and contrast. What do the words compare and contrast mean? Compare means to tell what is alike or the same between two things. Contrast means to tell what is different between two things.
Okay. So we can look at this chart. So this says compare and contrast. So to compare is to tell how are they alike or how are they the same. You might use words like also, alike, to, and, similar, same, like, or both. To contrast means how are they different? So some words you might use are although, however, unlike, but, not, only, or difference. So we are going to take a look at the two stories that we really dove into for a few weeks during the last unit. So we read Goldilocks and the Three Bears, and we read Cinderella. So we want to first compare. So we're going to talk about how are these two stories the same. Okay, so how are they the same? I'm going to think back to what happened in Goldilocks and what happened in Cinderella. Okay, so the first way I could say they are the same is they both have girls with blonde hair. We can see Cinderella right here, and we can see Goldilocks, and they both have the same color hair. Okay, I'm thinking about the other characters. So Cinderella had the prince, her sisters, and Goldilocks has bears in it. So those aren't the same, so I'm not going to put that on here. Let's think about the setting. So the setting of Cinderella was her house, and then at the ball in the castle. Well, the setting of Goldilocks was at the bear's house and then the forest. So they do have one thing the same. The setting in both books is a house. Because in Goldilocks, they're at the bear's house. And for Cinderella, she's at the evil stepsister's house. Okay. Let's think if there is anything else the same. So, in both of these stories, there is a little bit of magic. Cinderella has magic when the fairy godmother turns her into a beautiful princess. And Goldilocks kind of has magic because bears can talk. Is that really something that can happen? No. So they must be using a little bit of magic to help those bears talk. So we're going to say, there is magic in the stories. So 3 ways they're the same is they both have girls with blonde hair. The setting in both books is a house, and there is magic. I also want to add that both of these stories are fairy tales. Perfect. So now we're going to go ahead and go to how are they different? What is not the same in these stories? So I can think of a few things right off of my mind. So the first thing I'm going to say is there are bears in Goldilocks, but not in Cinderella. There aren't any talking animals in Cinderella. We could say there is a prince in Cinderella, but not in Goldilocks. Think about the settings that we talked about. So in Goldilocks, there is a forest as the setting. There is no forest in Cinderella. Also in Cinderella, there is a castle as the setting. There is no castle in Goldilocks. Now, if we want to think about something that actually happens in the stories, we know that Cinderella falls in love with a prince. So there is a big theme in Cinderella about love. So in Cinderella, two people fall in love. In Goldilocks, no one falls in love. The bears love each other, but they aren't all, we'll just stick with that. The bears do love each other, but they're not falling in love with each other. We can say in Cinderella, she loses her glass slipper. Does this happen in Goldilocks? No. In Goldilocks, she ate porridge. Does Cinderella eat porridge? No. So that's another thing that are different. We could go on and on with all of the things that are different about these fairy tales, but let's reread what we have. So there are bears in Goldilocks, but not in Cinderella. There is a prince in Cinderella, but not in Goldilocks. In Goldilocks, there is a forest as the setting. There is no forest in Cinderella. In Cinderella, there is a castle as the setting. There is no castle in Goldilocks. In Cinderella, two people fall in love. In Goldilocks, no one falls in love. The bears just love each other. In Cinderella, she loses her glass slipper. Goldilocks doesn't have a glass slipper. And last, in Goldilocks, she ate the porridge. There is no porridge in Cinderella. So to wrap things back up, comparing is telling how the stories are the same. What is something they both have? And contrasting is telling how the two stories are different. What is something one of the stories has that the other story does not have? We will be talking more about this week with some new fairy tales. I'm very excited, and I know you are too.